Peace, everyone. Welcome back to another live critique stream. We only have a few submissions. This critique session is a bit smaller than it is normally, partially because I have been off the past 2 weeks, spending time with my sister as she came here to visit me in Poland for a little while. And I just dropped her off at the airport not very long ago. So I came home, set up everything, and now here we are. So, hey there, Susan, Diane, Linda, Cherry. Good to see all of you. I hope you've enjoyed the last couple weeks off from art instruction. And we're going to be getting right back into it starting Monday. I do have the reference photos. I tried to do a little bit of work the last couple weeks, but we were just doing something like right after, like every single day was just jam packed with my sister. So I didn't quite get as much work as I thought I'd get done. This is actually the first time I sat at my desk in like 2 weeks. So it was a really nice time off. But anyways, let's get to the submissions. The first one here is Diane's submission. This was a project long in the making. Um, Last year, I think it was, we did a statue submission, or a statue project with pastels. And Diane went off and did these two statues instead, and really, really great subjects. If you've never done a statue, the statue that we did in the art club project was a marble statue. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Diane, but these ones don't look marble, they look concrete. So the texture is a little bit different than what you would find with the marble statues. But these look really, really good. I think that you captured the texture and that sort of that statue nature of them. Uh, I mean, when you look at them, they look like statues, and I think that's important to be able to capture. So I think you nailed that really, really well. Some of the features look like they gave you a bit of trouble here. Yeah, concrete garden statues. So I mean, that's great. You captured the difference in the material that the statues are made of, and visually, I think that uh, I don't recall seeing the reference. I may have. You may have showed me the reference a couple times, but um, when I look at them, I would think concrete statue and not like some other material. So that's really good. But yeah, the faces look like they gave you a little bit of trouble. Some of the shapes, just like if I point it out a little here and there, let's just grab a color and see. Can I have a brush? Why is this brush so big? There we go. I didn't realize that brush was ginormous. All right. So the one feature here on the boy is the nose sort of has this angle that just, it seems like the tip of the nose is a little bit high right here. I'll just zoom in a touch. So this angle right here feels a little bit off. And other than that, this eye also feels like a little bit higher. So if I draw a line through the eyes, you can see that this eye appears as though the eye is closed, but it could just be looking down. When you have a tilted head and you're looking down, your eyelids close a little bit, and from a certain angle, it can actually just look like your eyes are closed. Um, this this eye looks closed, and I can't really tell if this eye is open or closed. I know some of those details would be really difficult to get from the reference, but the same thing with this nose here. The angle also seems to be pointing up a little bit too much. Um, And then the cheek, this curve here, also looks a little bit exaggerated. Um, she probably has like a round face. Most children have those rounded faces, and that curve coming from the chin to the cheek from that particular angle, it is a nightmare. Trust me. It's one of the hardest angles of the face to draw. It's like a slightly down in three-quarter view. That angle is extremely difficult to make look natural. So I commend the effort for sure. Other than that, I think the values look really, really good. I love that you blacked out the background, but you still have some subtle colors in the background, which really helps just make the background feel deeper. Lost your line art a little bit. Yeah, losing your line art can definitely do that. I must say my favorite part is the watering can right here. I think that just the values that you have in it, the contour, the form shadows, and the subtle little textures. I love these little like these little dots and little bits of texture in there. This is what sort of really convinces me that it's made of concrete, and it looks really good. So I think that you nailed this. I love all of the texture that you added to the platform that the statues are standing on. It really it almost feels like it could be a mix between like just a dirt kind of gravel ground and also a little bit of water. It just has a really unique texture, and I like the texture dynamic. The statues are really smooth, but the platform they're standing on have a lot of texture, and it's just a nice contrast overall. Hey there, Claire. Good to see you. All right, moving on to Diane's next project, which is a subtle work in progress. She mentioned that she's going to be doing this boot in a few different variations. And I'm not sure, Diane, are you doing, was this the one that's just meant to be monochromatic, like just black and white? Um, if not, let me know. I was thinking if your intention is just black and white, then I think it's fine. But if it's not, then I was going to actually suggest maybe adding a little bit of color reflection in some of the smoother areas of the leather. Oh, hey, Cece, are you uh, are you waiting for your next flight in Warsaw right now? Is that what you're doing? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Alicia. I'm glad you're better though. Okay, you black and white, and you did sneak in some subtle colors. Yeah, maybe the photograph is dulling down the colors. I do see a hint of blue, and so that's what I thought that you added. Okay, blue and magenta. I don't see the magenta in the photo, but I definitely do see the blue. Yeah, a little over an hour for your layover. Well, I hope your first flight wasn't too long. I know the flight from Katowice to Warsaw is it's like 40 minutes or something. It takes almost longer to take off and turn around than it does to actually make the flight. But yeah, I think the leather texture is has come out really well. Utilizing the natural texture of colored pencil really helps add that sort of it's like a that leather pitting, almost canvas-like texture for leather, and I think colored pencils captures leather really well. So I think you did a great job on this one. And the touch of blue and magenta is a really good color choice for black leather. Yeah, taking pictures of artwork in general tends to be very difficult. I am no stranger to that. Up next is Susan. So you might notice, like I removed your background here, Susan, but just as I was testing out Photoshop's new AI system. So I don't know if you guys heard, but um, it's in beta right now. But Photoshop has started to implement AI into the software, and I did not cut this background out. This background is actually was done by AI, and I'll show you um, how what it looks like. So let me delete this. So I brought the image in, obviously, and as you can see, I removed the mask. And down here now, anytime you're dealing with a layer, you have these options that you can use. And I can select the subject, and then it will select what it perceives to be the subject matter of the image. And it doesn't do it perfect. You can see it deselected a little bit of the ear here, but then I can just mask this off. And that's what it gives me. And I was really quite impressed because if I just delete this layer mask and I just click on remove the background, it does it all in just one click. And you can see again, it cuts off the ear here. But that's an easy fix. And I was just like, wow, that's quite impressive. This is actually the first time that I tested this out, so I just thought I'd play around with it a little bit before the stream. It seems to also have cut off the earring right here, uh, but it's still very impressive, and you can still see some of the natural texture of the flyaways. So yeah, I just wanted to do that really quick. But anyway, Susan, your portrait here looks really good. Um, one of your one of your best hair for a human portrait. This is definitely one of your better hairs. I think that you got the flow going through really good. I like the different touches of color that you added to it. It's a little bit lighter than the black in the reference, but you added some nice reds and some nice yellows that I think complement the colors of the portrait. Um, your eyes are really good. I know in portraits in the past you struggled a little bit with the eyes. The nose actually looks really good. I think you could have gone a little bit darker with the shadow underneath the nose. So let me just zoom in really quick. So this shadow here gives the nose a lot of that popping out from the face. And I'll just do this and multiply, deselect. So something like that. You can see that it gives that nose a lot more of its shape. Yeah, so the shirt that I'm wearing right now is the Snorlax shirt that Cece got me uh, before she left, and we have matching bum attire now. So I have a Snorlax shirt and Snorlax shorts, and Cece has the same exact outfit. Yeah, ears. Well, I think that even though you just used a little bit of the hair to cover her ear, Susan, I think that that works really well. Um, you know, a strategy of hiding things is a good strategy to always have in your back pocket. Sometimes you just need to modify things that work best for you. And I think that you by covering that top part of the ear and sort of eliminating the stress of creating a good looking ear, since the reference photo did have a kind of a goofy double ear, that's a really good thing to do. I'm glad that you did that because um, it's a helpful sort of technique to consider in future projects, and I think everybody should consider that. The other thing I wanted to compliment you on is the nice shadow on the neck. I love to see those dark values in the skin, so I applaud you for getting those dark values, not being afraid to add the color. Good color on the lips. I think the top lip could be a little bit darker. And then again, of course, underneath the nose, sort of just deepening that shadow a little bit. Also underneath the eyebrows. So if I do the same thing for like the eyebrows here, underneath the eyebrows specifically, just getting a little bit more depth in the shadow really helps create like a deepness in the eyes, and the three-dimensional look of the nose. So if actually I could do the same thing with the upper lip. The upper lip subtly points down, right? And so the upper lip should be just a little bit darker than the bottom lip because you want to think of the upper lip sort of slants inwards and the bottom lip slants downwards. So the light coming down hits the bottom lip more than it does the top lip. And that just gives the face a little bit more form, that three-dimensional look. So here's before, here's after with the face. So just keep those things in mind. But overall, I think that you really, really did a fantastic job on the portrait. All right, up next is Dorothy, and she did this lovely, lovely portrait. A very difficult subject, and uh, did I see Dorothy in chat? I don't know if I saw Dorothy in chat. No, I don't think so. Anyways, this is a very tough portrait. Like the clothes that the kids are wearing have uh, are those seals on the sweater? This is a striped onesie, and then these like snowflake pants. So there's a lot of design here in the clothes, which can really complicate things quickly. But I think with each material, the sweater, the onesie, the pants, you absolutely nailed the design. The way the shapes change, keeping in mind the abstracted nature of the shapes. Like if you just look at something like this over here, some a shape like this, you got it pretty close. And the thing about designs and patterns on clothes is that you have to remember that the abstract shapes, as they're bending with the cloth, they don't have to be perfect as long as they're close enough for the viewer to accept them. They just have to be close enough that when the viewer looks at it, they don't question whether or not the shape is correct. And here I don't see any part of the clothes that I could look at and be like, "Ah, that seems a little off." I think the clothes are like perfect, like spot on, really, really good, especially the colors. I think the sweater is probably one of the most impressive parts because you have these highlights. You can see this highlight in the blue. It's like that lighter blue. And then you have the shadow here. You have this subtle fold right here in the shadow. So all of these little shapes, these kind of sub shapes beneath the pattern can be really, really tricky for people to see. But you've captured them really well. The other thing I wanted to mention, Dorothy, is that I did color correct the drawing a little bit. It seemed like there was a little excess blue in it, so I just nudged a little bit of yellow into the color correction, because it seemed like the skin was the wrong color. So hopefully I didn't color correct it in the wrong direction, but I feel like I got the skin looking probably closer to what it looks like in person. And then speaking of the skin, I think that you did really good on the skin as well. Again, we can see a little bit of color fear here. If you just look at the shadow side of this little boy's face, if I grab this color, you can see sort of how dark this value is. Like it's it also it's quite red. It's like a reddish muddy brown sort of color. And if we grab the color here, we can see that it's much lighter. It's also much less saturated. So those are the things that people struggle a lot with when it comes to skin. Not only value, I would say value is probably the thing that people struggle with the absolute most, but also saturation. So saturation can be kind of scary. But in these shadows, like the smile lines, just right here by the cheek, or right inside here, you can see a lot of people, they try to capture these like smile lines in these deeper shadowed parts of the face. They have a tendency to use black. And although black's not a color that you need to be forced to avoid. Black can certainly exist inside of shadows in skin. It's not totally unheard of, but the reality is you have to be careful with it because black is not a very lively color. And so if we look at this bright, very saturated clay brown, and then we look at the smile lines here, you're going to see yours is pretty close in value, but nowhere near in saturation. And so this is a little bit of how color fear plays a role. And I think that uh, utilizing these richer saturated colors is going to bring a lot of life to the skin. If I just let's see, I'm going to just sort of draw the shadow a little bit here with my lasso tool. So this whole side of the face here, and I'm just going to add that color, and let's maybe just lighten, no, overlay, no. Yeah, soft light. I think soft light is right. Um, and so you can see that I'm starting to bring in a little bit of the extra saturation that your skin just doesn't have. This isn't really changing the values, it's just changing the saturation levels, that so that doesn't inherently change the value of the skin. So I didn't really add a shadow. I just added saturation. And you can see how much more alive the skin uh, looks now in the shadows. And so here's before, here's after. It really starts to match the saturation levels you weren't afraid of in the clothes. The clothes are very vibrant and very well done with the bold colors and the bold shadows. The skin, however, is not. And you know, I can't tell you how many times I talk about it, but you can't be afraid just because it's skin. You can't be afraid to push the values and push the saturation just like you do in all of the other objects that you feel comfortable doing. Because in our head, and oftentimes subconsciously, you know, you say you're coloring the little onesie here with this like dark red maroon colors. You're not concerned as to whether or not the red is too vibrant or too purpley or too bluey. Like it could be a little bit more purple, or a little bit more blue, and it's going to look fine as long as you still capture the correct values and the shapes and things like that. You don't concern yourself as much because at the end of the day, as long as it looks close, you're going to you're going to accept it. And um, then you go to skin. You know, if you make skin look too green, all of a sudden it's an alien. You make it look too blue, and all of a sudden it's a mermaid. So we have this tendency to overcorrect ourselves when we're working with skin because it's a very particular color. And what we have a tendency to do, because we don't want to overdo it. We don't want to make it too saturated because then it looks, I don't know, looks like they have a spray on tan or something. Or we don't want to go too dark because they have fair skin. There's just, I'm not even sure at this point what holds each of us back when it comes to doing skin, because repeatedly for 2, 3 years now, I've talked about the importance of really pushing the values in skin, and dealing with like the saturation levels, controlling the saturation with the neutral gray colors, and then introducing highly vibrant colors, very saturated colors, and toning the skin and really bringing the life into the skin back. Um, and no matter how many ways I word it, it even with myself, being able to say this, being able to recognize it, there is still a struggle when I do a portrait. When I'm dealing with skin, I'm always reminding myself, I have to go darker here. Like the skin has to be more bold. And I've gotten a lot better at it over the years. But if I were to sit down and do a portrait right now, these things would still be a struggle because I want to get the skin perfect. But I don't want to hold myself back with the values or with the saturation, because if I do that, I know the skin's not going to be perfect. So anytime I'm dealing with skin, I'm always just repeating to myself inside my head, push it, go further. Just keep just keep going. Don't be afraid to keep going. Push it as far as you can, because uh, one of the things that I've said to myself over the years, or come to realize, is that if you're going to create something great, you have to push it all the way up to the line of messing it up. If you never risk messing it up, you will never get to greatness, because greatness is at the peak. So when it comes to skin, think of it like this. If you never go dark enough, then you'll never approach going too dark. If you never go dark enough, then you'll never approach too dark. Too dark means at some point you were dark enough and you went too far. But if you never push it and approach too dark, then you will never get dark enough. And if you don't get dark enough, you'll never be great. It will never, ever, ever be great. Because greatness is the difference between greatness and like just in value. Like I said, dark enough is just before too dark. There's not even a line there, it's a gradient. And the same thing with saturation. If you don't go saturated enough to the point that you might be oversaturated, then you'll never be saturated enough. You have to push it. Sometimes not sometimes, every single time, you must risk messing it up. You have to risk it, because the same line between messing it up and perfection, it's you can't even distinguish it. You can't distinguish the line. So if you never push it to the point you might mess up or it might be messed up, then you will never arrive at greatness. It's like trying to take a trip, or like this morning I drove my sister to the airport. If I never risked passing the airport, if I never risked driving past the airport, like going too far, then I would have never arrived in the first place because I would have stopped short and she would have had a long walk to get to her plane. She would have missed her plane and then she would have beat me up because I stopped short, you know. I, don't be so afraid of overshooting your destination that you never arrive. That I don't know how else to put it. Yeah, throwing it's better. I think it's better. You're going to learn more making mistakes and getting muddy than you are never getting muddy. But anyways, apologies for the tangent. This is a fantastic portrait, Dorothy, and I love the change to the background. I think if you had tried to put in that couch in the pillow or whatever nonsense is there, way too much texture. I love that you just sort of put a wall there with some nice soft cast shadows. Looks really good. Yeah, it looks really good. So, excellent choice on the color of the background. Excellent choice there. Um, and really good cast shadows. I think that you translated the natural cast shadows from the reference photo to the artwork. And overall, I think you made the picture better. So good job. All right. Up next is Cherry. She also did this portrait and just knocked it out of the park. I cannot talk today. Um, I think the facial features look really, really good. I think you have some really clean, sharp lines here, Cherry. I think you really, really did a great job on this portrait. The flyaways in the hair are a little unnatural. They're just a touch unnatural, especially in this area on the back of the head. These ones are tricky. Yeah, these ones are tricky. And flyaways, getting them natural. Oh goodness. If I could teach you, if I could teach you how to make flyaways look natural, I would in a heartbeat. I promise you. It's the only thing is just experience. Like I can't teach experience. Trust me, I would upload it to the internet and everybody could have all the experience they wanted from me. But it's just going to take time and some practice, and that's about it. The I've expressed it before. Our brains are hardwired to see and make patterns. Our brains love patterns, and so avoiding pattern and creating random is one of the hardest things for our brain to tell our hands to do. And sometimes you just have to learn to disconnect your brain from your muscles in your hand. And it's rough. It's just going to take time, but I promise you're on the right track for sure. You are on the right track. It's also one of those things that we have a fear of messing it up. And so we have a tendency of trying to make them perfect. The problem is, flyaways are the opposite of perfect, and they must be random. They must be random to look natural. And like I said, forcing random is an oxymoron. You can't force random. You can only generally influence and then just let it happen. It's like when you throw paint. You know, are you flicking like a paint splatter? Like you want to make a paint splatter um, texture on a painting or whatever. Um, if you try to do it perfect, you're not going to do it at all. Like the only way to do it perfect is to paint every individual dot, and it's not going to look like splatter. It's going to look like you painted a bunch of dots. So yeah, it's just going to take time. The facial features look really, really good. I think the one thing about the eyes is the top part of the eyes. I noticed that you changed the color, and this needs to be darker here across the top of the irises. This is just going to make them look more natural. Um, because that shadow needs to be darker. So here's without the shadow. You can see the eyes like really, really glow with that blue turquoise color that you chose. And it just needs to be more subtle. That top part, you can almost think of the pupil of an eye. So you have the eye, right? And you have the iris, and then you have the pupil. 99 times out of 100, I want you to think of the pupil like this. I don't think of the pupil as a circle. Think of a pupil as whatever shape that is. Okay. Your eyes are immediately going to look more dynamic, the iris, if you think of your pupil as being that shape. Because even if this is black, even if this is black up here, it still adds the shine to the bottom part of the iris. That's really where the focus of color is anytime you're looking in somebody's eyes, because our eyes are sunken back into our heads, our eyebrows stick out further, and light is almost exclusively coming down on our faces. And that's the case here. You can see the cast shadow from her head onto to her neck. So we know the light source is coming here. So the eyelids are casting a shadow across our eyes. And that's why the top part of the iris is always so dark. And it's very jarring to see the color of the iris all the way up to the top, because it sort of eliminates the natural way eyes look with the shadow on top. So just think of it like that. Think of the pupil as that circle with the bar on top. So this shape here. This is what a pupil looks like. Just think of it like that. And then the iris is the bottom part with all the texture. You're gonna see a lot of success in your eyes, um, if you think of the pupil more like that shape. And I'm not saying that you have to color all of this black. This doesn't all have to be black. You can still have a defined edge in with your pupil. Oftentimes there you'll see like a highlight here. This is where the highlight will be. Something like that. I think you're doing really good with the colored pencils, Susan. Yeah. All right. Up next is Linda, and goodness gracious, Linda, this so many lines. I can't believe that you would. I can't believe anybody would do this with colored pencils, but leave it to Linda to do this with colored pencils. This is definitely one of the most impressive pieces that I've seen you do. It's absolutely wild that you would approach this. Because you knocked that out of the park. Like, you captured the essence of the reference photo so good. I love all of the lines. Um, there's this optical illusion where if you draw the outside line of your hand, right? You just draw the outside of the outside of your hand, like trace your hand on a piece of paper. That's all I'm trying to say, right? And then draw horizontal lines that arch over each part of your hand. and then extend them perfectly straight outside of your hand. So the lines here are arched, and you do that for each finger. And then where it touches, these lines are straight. So straight lines, but they arch exactly where your fingers are and where your wrist is and everything. And you color it in black, white, black, white, black, white. So alternate. And it will look very three-dimensional. You'll find hundreds of people doing this, videos of this on YouTube and stuff. And you can certainly Google it as well and see pictures of hands drawn this way. That's what the all of these shadow lines create in this image. They create a three-dimensional illusion across the subjects that have these lines. In particular, the main subject, which is this guy here carrying the fishing pole and the pink bag. Yeah, very, very pink bag. And so I really like this reference. Not in a million years, not in a million years would I look at that reference. I presumably you took this picture. Um, would I consider doing this as a painting, as a drawing, as anything? This would have never in a million years ended up in my folder of things I want to draw. But as a drawing, it looks amazing. Like it's so, so cool. It's super cool. A shopping bag with fruits. I thought it might be a pink plastic bag with a fish in it that just happened to be like orange. But the 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 one thing that changes the look of the artwork is the sky. When I looked at the artwork before looking at the reference, I thought the sky was cloudy. I thought it was completely cloudy, like solid overcast, which contradicts the lighting. Oh, that's funny, Linda. All the people fishing off the pier, no one catches fish. That's funny. Um, but anyways, back to the sky. Do you know why water is blue? Does anybody know why water is blue? I'll give you a hint. I'll just give you the answer. It's because it reflects the color of the sky. Your color of water matches the reference photo like spot on. The touch of green, like that tealish color, and then the really rich blue. Even the like the subtle desaturated blue, like in the middle. Like you captured the the water really, really well. But then the sky is really subdued and soft and light. And I wasn't sure if that was a choice you wanted to make, like consciously, like you wanted to make the sky look like it was cloudy, or you just didn't want it to be as vibrant as the reference photo. But the issue is that it it looks cloudy. And so um, I think the sky would have benefited from being a bit more vibrant, uh, similar to the blue in it didn't have to be the exact reflection or the exact color of the sky in the reference, but by making it a brighter blue, clear sky, it it reinforces that it's direct sunlight. Now, of course, that part of the sky could be overcast, but I don't know. I feel like it takes away from the sky a little bit. Other than that, I wouldn't change anything. I was looking at the reference photo from like this distance, and I was like, well, actually, no, I take that back. I was looking at the artwork, and I was like, this is a bike, right? And I was like, what happened to the front tire? I was like, what is this front tire doing? Like, why is this bike just randomly have like half of a front tire? And I looked at the reference and I was like, wait a minute, why does that bike have half of a front tire? And I zoomed in. I was like, what is happening here? And then I realized that there's these concrete benches that wiggle back and forth like it's like a wavy concrete bench. And then the concrete bench ends, the bike is parked, and then there's another concrete bench. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's wild. And you can see like these lines are like vertical and then it curls around that curved part of the bench. And just those subtle little curves everywhere where the bench uh, changes. And I was like, wow, that's super cool the way the light did that. And you can see Linda paid very close attention to the benches and got those subtle bends. Uh, and yeah, so I mean, I can't compliment this work enough, Linda. It's fantastic. Yeah. It still amazes me that you would even consider this. Some of the projects that you do, Linda, um, I wouldn't want to touch with a 10-foot pool, pun intended. Like because all those lines, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do the line art for this. But you nailed it. Yeah, you nailed it. Super, super good. All right. I have just a couple Wait, did I miss a monthly mastery? I only have two here. Was anybody um just let me know if I happen to have missed it. I hope I didn't. For some reason I feel like there was three, but now I can't remember. Oh, I think Margaret. Yeah, I think I got Margaret's here. Yeah, I also have Margaret's. So let me just bring this in really quick. She submitted hers in Discord. That's why I thought that I saw it, but I couldn't remember. That's okay, Linda. Here, this is Margaret. So Cherry, this is the monthly mastery 17. Really, really good. Like the the purple, the purple looks a little too close to lavender, but the blue on the cube, the red on the pyramid, and the greenish white into the yellowish white on the sphere look quite good. I didn't pull up the original reference. Let me do that really quick. I forgot to grab the reference. I was trying to get everything together today, and all right. Yeah, for sure the purple is a little bit off. It should be a deeper redder purple. This shadow must be darker also on the pyramid. So this here, let me grab polygon. So this shadow here, this is a shadow, just to be clear. Let me grab this color, boop, and multiply. That's pretty close. Maybe the wrong shade exactly. Yeah, it's a little bit like that. Maybe too much there. Yeah, it's about that. It's about that color and value. So you can see the difference is pretty significant. Um, the blue looks, yeah, the blue looks good, about spot on. The top part here is much too light. Yeah, the top side um, of the cube is much too light of a blue. And then let's see yeah, the sphere looks really good. Yeah, maybe yeah, that you could extended the yellow a little bit more in this general area, but overall I think you captured the color pretty good. The value on this part, the value on the shadow side is a little bit too light. The gradient should have went just a hair darker. Again, the tabletop, this color is much too saturated and too light. The tabletop is very difficult. Also, the background is much too light. It should be darker. The background should be darker. And these shadows here are much too gray. Like this cast shadow should be much richer in a brown than this. This is like pure gray, like pure gray. Also, this cast shadow on the pyramid should be darker as well. But overall, you have nice clean lines, great shapes, and yeah, I give this is like a C plus. Yeah, this is like a C plus. So Cherry, you get a C plus. Try to C plus. Try to get your values a little bit closer next time on the shapes. All right, up next is Margaret. And all right, the blue looks pretty good. Yeah, the blue looks pretty good. Again, here the values also need to be darker on portions of this. Same thing that I said with cherries. Like this shadow, or this is a shadow. This area is a shadow, and that is much too bright. This shadow here, let me pick a different color. This color is not showing up. So this shadow here is basically just dark gray. Like there's no saturation to it. It's just sort of gray. And there should be red showing up. The object is red. The shadow has the cast shadow has red. Um, this cast shadow here from the cylinder across the cube. Now I have the wrong color. This must also be darker. This cast shadow should be purple, or this is a form shadow. This should be more purple and darker. This purple here is pretty close. So this purple here is pretty close. This needs to be much darker here. There should be yellow and there should be green into a brownish color. The tabletop is very close. Yeah, the tabletop color very close. The background here needs to be much darker and also the correct color. This cast shadow also needs to be darker with the correct color. This cast shadow here looks good. You would have been a lot closer to just reuse this cast shadow over to here. And you don't have to do this area with the black. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. It's fine. Just for future reference, all of the reference photos has that edge. You can do it. You don't have to do it. You can crop. You can crop right around the shapes. Like you can crop that much. I still want to see a little bit of this cast shadow, but if you don't do the whole thing, I'm not gonna like, you're not gonna get dinged for it. Um, okay, so quite a bit of work still needed on this one. I'm gonna give this a D. The accuracy of the shapes and everything look really, really good. The colors generally look pretty accurate. The red is pretty incorrect. All of the red is incorrect. The blue is very close. The front side of the cylinder is very close, but the shadows are not. The shadows are not close. Oh, hey there, Chandri. Yeah, I did. Cece and I, we spent a tremendous amount of time in the sun the past week. Actually, the past week we have been doing nothing but playing Pokemon Go and walking outside for hours. For hours. I would wake up. I made Cece go on my gym schedule. So I would wake up at 5 and I'd get her up about 5:30, 6 o'clock, depending on um, how long it took me to do my morning routine. And we would go to the gym. After we would get back from the gym, we would just either go on bike ride or we would walk and play Pokemon Go. And we would do it all day, all day. We would walk like 10, 15 kilometers uh, and just be Pokemon going. And we Pokemon Go'd for a week straight, or actually 6 days, 6 days. And I walked 47 kilometers on top of the normal like workout. Uh, so on my account, it shows me how much I walked. And the funny thing is, I actually walked a lot more than that because I didn't have the game running the entire time we were in Warsaw. So we went to Warsaw over last weekend, and that's when we started playing Pokemon Go. And we walked we walked so much in Warsaw, just a ridiculous amount. And I needed to conserve my battery, so I shut the game off and it was not calculating how far we walked. So for sure, in the past 6 days, we walked more than 50 kilometers. Well, I would say closer to 60, if not more than 60, because there was a lot of walking that we did in Warsaw where um, uh, I didn't have the game calculating the distance walked. All right. Last but not least is Diane's monthly mastery. And Diane, you mentioned that the photograph came out a little dark, but this looks so good. Like, even if it was just a touch brighter, yeah, I didn't have Adventure Sync on. Yeah, I didn't have Adventure Sync on either. I specifically had that shut off to save battery because I didn't have a way to charge it while we were going from place to place in Warsaw. So that's why I didn't calculate. But I have it turned on now. Um, anyways, this came out super super good, Diane. The sort of recognizing that the photograph did come out a little bit darker than it is probably meant to be. I can tell you now that this is this is A quality. Like the values look really great. The brightness on the sphere I'm going to take into account is because the photo is darker than it ought to be. But the one thing is the line here that cuts across the ball or cuts across the sphere that separates the light from the shadow. I don't quite see that. And it's about the only thing keeping me from saying A plus. But the purple looks fantastic. The blue, the red, the colors look really, really spot on here. Even the tabletop looks like spot on, like very, very good on the tabletop. It's just the sphere. The sphere is the only thing that I'm dinging you on because even taking into account that the photograph is a little bit darker than you intended, uh, the the sphere doesn't quite get that obvious separation from light to dark. So the gradient there is just a bit too blurry, but I can see the colors are correct in the shadow. Maybe a little bit of this brown should be reflecting, um, but we haven't really done reflections highlights yet. We're just dealing with the shapes. So I'm not going to ding you on the reflection because there shouldn't be reflections yet. Um, but yeah, this is very good. This is a perfect example of an A. This is a perfect example if I can get the right color. This is an A. Um, yeah. So this is a solid A. This is what I want the monthly masteries to look like. This is a really good example. Great coverage. Maybe it's just the picture that seems a little blurry, but maybe the edges could be just a touch sharper. Being nitpicky, but yeah, this looks three dimensional, right? Like this looks three dimensional. If I zoom out and we sort of get a good perspective of the artwork overall, like that's a really good still life. That's a really really good still life, and that's what you should be aiming for with the monthly masteries is making these sort of boring objects look three-dimensional and just looking better than the reference. Like this looks better than the reference. So this is a really good place to end on today. Does anybody have any questions before I go? I'm sort of glad we only had a few submissions. I am exhausted. I'm so exhausted today. Uh, Real quick synopsis. So, Cece's flight got randomly canceled yesterday, and we're like, what is going on? And her new flight was pushed like 5 hours. And so I was like, oh, great. We can go to the gym one more time. And then after we go to the gym, we can do some Pokemon Go. And then I'll drive you to the airport. And so we woke up, went to the gym, had a nice workout, came back home, got some protein shakes, and then we went out and we did some. We walked a couple kilometers playing Pokemon Go, all the way up to the point of driving to the airport. So, and even when we got to the airport after we got CC checked in and everything, we were standing at the airport, still playing Pokemon Go. We were Pokemon going all the way up to the point that she went into security. So, oh hey there, Margaret. Let me check. Oh, I do see your portrait here. Yeah, let me pull this in really quick. Let me pull this in really quick. So Margaret did submit this portrait also. Oh Jesus, that picture is huge. So she also did this portrait. And Margaret, real quick, did you freehand draw this? Um, I don't want to touch too much on the accuracy, like the um yeah, we had a super fun time, Susan. Absolutely. Yeah, I had an absolute blast the past 2 weeks. Like we were going 100 miles an hour like since day one. And I gave CC no opportunity to adjust to the time zone. I immediately started waking her up at 5 o'clock in the morning and we went to the gym. So I never stopped doing the workouts, but on top of doing the workouts, we also walked everywhere. Um, Anyways, Margaret, the line art accuracy on the eyes, nose, and mouth are off a little bit, but they're not so dramatically off that it looks bad. It just looks like a different person from the reference photo. The nose is a little bit long on the inside nostril, and that makes her nose look almost as wide as her lips. And you don't often come across people with noses as wide as their lips. I'm not sure I have ever seen anybody with a nose so wide that it comes that close to the width of their mouth. So you want to be careful with that nostril length because that really, especially with a slightly angled face, extending the nostril um, really adds a lot of girth to the nose. And uh, I mean, to put it simply, her nose is perfect in the reference photo. She has the perfect nose. It's just angular enough that it doesn't look like it's been plastic surgery into oblivion, but it's also got a nice smooth curve of the bridge. Like she has a perfect nose. The AI knew what it was doing with her nose for sure. The hair looks good. The earrings look bigger. Actually, the earring looks bigger than the reference photo, which isn't inherently a bad thing. But that bigger ness of the earring and have you sort of scaled the abstract shapes of the earring, and so the structure of the earring looks a little bit bulkier than the reference, but it's still just it still looks like gold. You have the right colors, but I feel like there needs to be a little bit more texture in the earrings just to give it just to give it a little more, I don't know, detail. Like the shapes, because they appear bigger, the detail needs to be smaller to get that same shiny effect. Necklace looks good though. Um, the skin on the face looks really, really good. Like the skin on the face looks really smooth. The shadow on the neck looks a little rough. You can see some of the grainy, you can see a little bit of the grain from the pencils, and I know that's really hard to deal with when you get to the darker colors. It's tough to get um, right, but I think overall you did really good on the skin. Good colors around the eyes, the lips. The highlight on the lip looks a little big, but otherwise, yeah, it looks good. And same thing with Cherry's flyaways. You know, getting them looking natural. Back here, this looks this almost looks a little bit like a spider web, that sort of spider web pattern. Uh, Getting the flyaways to look natural, light, uh, it's just going to take time. So don't worry too much about that. Um, the curve of the neck changes, so you would sort of extend the neck out, and it shouldn't do that. It should continue to gently smooth, gently curve inwards until it hits her clavicle bone. And then when it hits her clavicle bone, that's when it curves back out. So yours curves out right here. It should curve out right here. And from here to here, it should be just a very gentle curve, almost a straight line. The back of her neck also, like this here, that directional line is pointing this way, and it creates the illusion that her neck gets real wide towards the back of her head. So that line also is a little off. It should be, again, just like this gentle curve up to about here. And then this dips in, it feels like it dips in just a little bit too much. So there's just a few anatomical inaccuracies here that make things just look a little bit shifted and a little bit weird. But overall, I think you did a really good job on this portrait. Anyways, that is it for today. So, um, thank you guys so much for coming by and hanging out. I have so much stuff to do. Um, we're going to start the pastel project, which is a master copy of Vermeer's Girl with the Pearl Earring. I have the reference prepared. It's not a super complex uh, like line art. Like it's very simple. So there's not a whole lot of line art that you're going to have to deal with. So don't worry too much about that. But we're going to be starting that pastel project on Monday. And then Tuesday, you know what? I think what we'll do, I'm just coming up with this on the spot. Monday we're going to start the pastel project and we're just going to do it for that week. The following week we'll start a colored pencil project. I don't want to give anybody, including myself, too much to do this weekend to prepare for. Uh, I have to do the next monthly mastery. I'll have that up today, and then the pastel project that we're going to start, which is Vermeer's Girl with the Pearl Earring. So, anyways, thank you guys again so much for coming by and hanging out. I hope you enjoyed the live stream, and I will see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Take care. Peace.